Before skyscrapers, before ports, before airports, there was one man who saw Dubai, not as it was, but as it could be. Today, I'd like to spend a little while with you talking about Sheikh Rashid bin Saeed Al Maktoum. He was a visionary leader whose remarkable life was dedicated to shaping the city we know today as Dubai, but also the United Arab Emirates. In 1912, we saw the birth of a remarkable character in the history of Dubai. That year, Sheikh Saeed and his wife Sheikh Hassa had their eldest son, Sheikh Rashid bin Saeed Al Maktoum, who would go on to be known as the father of Dubai and have such a profound effect on the history, not just of Dubai, but of the UAE and internationally. When Sheikh Rashid was a young man in the prime of his youth, Dubai and the Gulf was struck by a major crisis. According to Lorimer, up to 90% of the Gulf economy was based on pearling. Overnight, that was over. And the ramifications were total for the region, and especially for Dubai. Overnight, families were made destitute. Over subsequent months, there was talk of famine. And that was a key moment in the story of Sheikh Rashid. He was a young man, still in his late teens. Sheikh Saeed had Sheikh Rashid. He was a young, dynamic, energetic prince at that point. He had an idea. He was a shareholder in several fishing boats and also in sponge fishing. And over the subsequent months, to put the town back to work, essentially what Sheikh Rashid did was repurpose some of the pearling boats and send them out as fishing boats and sponge fishing. And it was a gradual process, but it created employment, it created wealth, it generated funds that could buy food for people. It was Sheikh Rashid who built the fishing industry. This was the moment in that period in very late 20s, early 30s, where Sheikh Rashid emerged as this power, as this vibrance, as somebody who had ideas. In the late 1930s, Sheikh Rashid, this powerful, dynamic man, had taken on the day-to-day running of Dubai, and he had big ideas of where they were going to go. He managed to engender a recovery. There's a famous quotation attributed to him that what's good for the merchants is good for Dubai. He'd issued draft legislation that aimed to create an electricity company, a telephone company. And he decided that Dubai was finally going to have an airport. Approaching the airport, he went to the British and asked for technical support. And there was a famous meeting in the Majlis where Winchester, the British political resident, came to Sheikh Rashid. And after the British and Whitehall and Downing Street had looked at this issue, he said to Sheikh Rashid, "Thank you very much, Sheikh Rashid, but we as the British have decided we cannot support this idea. You should use Sharjah Airport." Now, one thing you could never say about Sheikh Rashid is he didn't have guts. And he turned to Winchester and said, "Thank you very much for your response, but now I'd like to tell you, Dubai is going to have an airport." There was another famous British quotation from that period. Throughout those early years, Sheikh Rashid was drawing round him the best and the brightest. He toured the Royal Marsden Hospital and saw children with cancer, ladies with cancer, the cancer wards and the work that was going on at Royal Marsden. Now, Sheikh Rashid is well known for what he's achieved in Dubai, but what most people don't know, and what is only just becoming apparent from the documents and records that we are finding, is Sheikh Rashid's quiet influence on the world. Today we see Sheikh Mohammed and the Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum initiative, global initiatives. Quietly, this was going on many years, and during that period, the early 60s, Sheikh Rashid became the largest single private donor to cancer research in Europe. And that had huge ramifications. The Royal Marsden was not just a national, but was international centre for cancer research. And Sheikh Rashid was funding that consistently over a number of years. This is Dubai. I've never been able to discover the source of Sheikh Rashid's interest in kidney disease. Just as he had with cancer, Sheikh Rashid was a global leader in kidney disease. He invested well over £1 million with Oxford University, which at that time was leading the global charge against kidney disease. This lasted about 20 years. It was a foundation. It lasted 20 years. They sent a biannual report, a thorough report to Sheikh Rashid. Sheikh Rashid is very well known for what he did, the foundations of modern Dubai, which he laid with such vision in those days. What we know less about is Sheikh Rashid reaching out across the developing world and his profound impact. Sheikh Rashid was a man who was all about development and modernity. He built the foundations of Dubai, which His Highness Sheikh Mohammed is built upon. But Sheikh Rashid himself never changed. The highlight of his year was a 10-day, 2-week hunting trip. And Sheikh Rashid had one foot in the future, but he always maintained that basis in the past. And the same way he knew that his sons, he was preparing them for a future that perhaps he could not even see. A modern future, a future where Dubai had jets, Dubai had electricity in every home, Dubai had water, clean water going in every home. He also took great trouble to make sure that his sons didn't lose their cultural foundations. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed learned to hunt in the desert, but he was also somebody who went to Cambridge to learn English. And Sheikh Rashid did not see any conflict in that. From 1958, Sheikh Rashid had achieved so much in a very short space of time. So let's take 58 to the mid-60s. We had telephones, we had water, we had electricity, we had housing, we had development. And then came 66, and suddenly there was a buzz in the Majlis. The oil men were coming back with snippets of information. And I remember reading a document that Sheikh Rashid had telephoned the political resident with news that Dubai had struck commercial deposits. And really that was a catalyst for a second Sheikh Rashid era. From 58 to 66, the mid-60s, he'd achieved what he'd achieved on a shoestring up until the mid-60s to late 60s. Even though Dubai was thriving, large container ships, transport ships, were forced to anchor up to a mile offshore and be unloaded onto small barges, and then the cargo would be brought into shore. It was inefficient, and Sheikh Rashid did not like it. At the time, even the merchants were saying to Sheikh Rashid, why do you need 16 berths? Which ships are going to come to Dubai? Why do you need this capacity? But Sheikh Rashid was like, okay.
With the port becoming operational, Sheikh Rashid's vision was realised, and the berths were filled with ships.
It hadn't been long when Port Rashid had opened, where suddenly plans emerged for what would be the Middle East's tallest building, a centre of offices and a trade centre, what became Dubai World Trade Centre, that would be unlike anything that we'd seen in this part of the world before. Again, I'll return to Abdullah Saleh, who at the time was Sheikh Rashid's favourite banker. He said people were incredulous. People were saying to him, Sheikh Rashid, why? Who is going to go in these offices? Why do we need these offices? Air-conditioned offices? What are these for? So this began in the mid-70s, construction, and it was finished in 79. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth opened the World Trade Centre. And in 1979, on the day that building opened, the building which people said was a white elephant, and people were beginning to doubt Sheikh Rashid that he hadn't gone a little bit too far now. All these offices were full from day one. One morning in 1972, Neville Allen from Halcrow receives a telephone call. Sheikh Rashid wants to see you in Jebel Ali. Now at the time, Jebel Ali was nothing. It was sand and a small hillock near the coast. He joins Sheikh Rashid on this hillock, and Sheikh Rashid says to him, down there, I want to build a port. How much will it cost me? So Neville Allen did a quick calculation in his head and said $2 billion, a man-made port. And Sheikh Rashid said, okay. And that was the birth of Jebel Ali. Sheikh Rashid had this vision, and it was now becoming even more apparent, more than those early 50s where he was doing his telephones and his electricity and his water. Now his ambitions had risen to another level. Jebel Ali was not a white elephant and became fundamental to Dubai's growth until today. On January the 9th, 1968, the Daily Express leaked a story that Britain was about to announce the end of its commitments. Instantly, this would change everything for the Trucial Coast. Sheikh Rashid was in the Majlis that morning when he was informed of this story, and his first comment to his advisors was, call Mohammed. He needed him at that point. He needed all his sons. Within 1 week of Downing Street confirming that this story was true and the British were to leave the Trucial Coast, there was that famous meeting in the desert between Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan and Sheikh Rashid, where the foundations for the federation were laid. December the 2nd, 1971 was the culmination of years of work, the most important moment perhaps in the history of this nation. Sheikh Rashid and Sheikh Zayed had succeeded. From about 74, Sheikh Rashid had heard some complaints that health services in Fujairah were substandard. He didn't like this, so he called to the Majlis, the Minister of Health, and said, what on earth is going on in Fujairah? And the Health Minister says, yeah, this has happened, blah, this is why. And he says, go to Fujairah. So the Health Minister told me this story himself. So he goes to Fujairah, he sees the depths of the problems, and he comes back to the Majlis as Sheikh Rashid told him to, and says, yes, this is what's going on there, this is why it's happened, we're doing our best, so on and so forth. And Sheikh Rashid says, hang on a second. In the Majlis is a prominent local developer called Khalaf Al-Habtua. And he says to Khalaf, go and build 2 hospitals in Fujairah and do it now. As Dubai developed, his interest expanded, and his interest was in the people of the UAE. So even today, people are living in housing that Sheikh Rashid laid the foundations for, and in townships that were put there by him. Sheikh Rashid has been gone 30 years now, but Sheikh Rashid's influence is physically there still across the UAE. Sheikh Rashid's perspective and his 24 hours a day drive and determination was cut tragically short. In 1981, Sheikh Rashid attended alongside Indira Gandhi. What was apparent to those who knew Sheikh Rashid well was that it was not Sheikh Rashid. Hamad bin Sugat, who was a close personal friend of Sheikh Rashid, basically said it wasn't Sheikh Rashid. Something was missing. Now, he'd been born in 1912. He was in his mid-70s, and he dedicated a lifetime of service to his nation and people. What Sheikh Rashid often found was, at moments of stress and when he was tired, a few days at Dubai's desert enclave in Hatta were very restorative. He had a small palace there. He enjoyed his time. The climate was cooler and it was different. So Sheikh Rashid travelled there for 2 or 3 days. And Sheikh Rashid being Sheikh Rashid, he couldn't stay there for long. Soon the demands of power and the demands of his job in Dubai and the UAE called him back home. I remember hearing again from Hamad bin Sugat that Sheikh Mohammed himself went to Hatta and implored his father, stay there, have a few days off, rest. But Sheikh Rashid wasn't. about that. He was about service. He was about his job. And on the road back from Hatta to Dubai, he fell ill. And by the time he got to Dubai, it was clear that he'd had a stroke. His sons, Sheikh Mohammed especially, spent a great deal of time over ensuing years taking Sheikh Rashid for therapy, for treatment abroad. And Sheikh Rashid revived. Sheikh Rashid was took part in he was in public, he was around every day. There was a story that Hamad bin Sukat told me that almost every day when he was in the UAE, Sheikh Mohammed used to go for a few hours to Zabil Palace and sit with Sheikh Rashid and tell him his news and tell him what was going on. And Sheikh Rashid's favourite thing of all was sitting in a chair on the first floor of Zabil Palace, looking out across Dubai in the afternoon, just seeing the city which he'd sculpted and created.
In 7 October 1990,
Sheikh Rashid passed away.
بين ماض وحاضر كان سحر الخيال بارعا في المعاني ليلها صوره، وكان في الركب راشد خالد ما يزال في قلوب تحبه دايما يذكره، وكان راشد يهون كل أمر عضال، وكان راشد على ما نابنا يقدره يحمل الضر عنا والحمول الثقال، من براشد تحزم لا تظن يخسره.